Playing your favourite music from the 60s.
Round, round, get around, I get around.
70s. And the 80s. This is the Big Decades on 102.5 The Bridge.
UB40 and Rats in the Kitchen. 5 minutes after 1 on the Big Decades, 102.5 FM and around the world on all the W's, thebridgeradio.net. Mark Spate on the Big Decades. My guest on the Big Decades this afternoon is a local lad that has sold over 60 million records worldwide. He has notched up 4 number 1 worldwide singles and over 40 top 40 UK singles. He's received an Ivor Novellan Award for International Achievement. His group were nominated for the Best Reggae Album of 2006. We are pleased to welcome to the Big Decades Ali Campbell. Good afternoon, Ali. How are you?
All right, how are you doing?
All right. We're just saying off air, a little bit warm.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
We shouldn't complain.
You'll never hear me complaining about the heat. I mean, I did live in Jamaica on and off for 17 years, you know, so I'm kind of used to it. And I miss it when it's not here, you know.
Straight off Swindon last night, how did that go?
Oh, it was fabulous. We had a great time up there. And it was a bit like playing in Colombia or Ecuador, though. The heat was a bit oppressive. It was 32 degrees before I got on stage, you know. So with the lights as well, it was probably up to 140 degrees on stage.
Oh.
So I should be stick thin. I don't know why I'm not.
I know the feeling. All right, Ali, before we have a talk, let's have a quick preview of what is UB40 and Ali Campbell. 9 minutes after 1 on the Big Decades on 102.5 The Bridge. My special guest this afternoon is Ali Campbell. Ali, those take you back, don't they?
Wow, yeah. There was one of them in there. I sounded like a girl. That, of course, was Pamela Starks. I did a duet with her back in the day.
Yeah.
That Look in Your Eyes, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I've had a pretty long career of it, you know. 24 albums I made with UB40. And now I'm on my 4th album since I left them, you know, with the Debt Band. So, yeah, let's get up for 30 albums I've made, you know.
So let's go back to the beginning, your musical career. How did it all begin for you?
Well, we were all unemployed, and we sort of became disenfranchised. You know, at first, like anybody, we wanted a job, but after 3 years of trying to get a job in Thatcher's Britain, you know, we became a bit disillusioned and started getting into the right not to work, and that's when we started getting the band together, you know.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours said, why don't you call the band UB40 as you're all unemployed? And so we, in calling ourselves UB40, we gave ourselves 3 million card-carrying fans instantly, you know. And we were very lucky in that Chrissy Hine came to see us. We'd only actually played a dozen gigs, and Chrissy Hine came to see us, and she was number 1 at the time with Brass in Pocket and the Pretenders, and she put us on our tour, and our first single went to number 4, and we never looked back, you know.
For all our young listeners who aren't aware, UB40 was it was the number of the unemployment form that you used to sign on with, wasn't it?
That's right. The UB is for unemployment benefits, and the 40 was a registration number. The reason why I'm allowed to still be a UB40 is because nobody owns the name. It's a registration.
That's right.
Government registration card, yeah. And we had to have the original album cover, which was a replica of the card. We had to have that franked so that you couldn't legally send it through the post.
Memory says it was a yellow card, wasn't it? Was it yellow? I remember.
Yeah, that's it, the yellow unemployment,
that's right.
The UB40 card. I think it's a UB40Z now.
So going back to those early days, what were your musical influences?
I'd grown up listening to reggae, Reggae sort of came about ska started in 1963, so I was too young to enjoy that. I was born in 59. And ska turned into rocksteady, and rocksteady turned into reggae in about 1969, when I was about 10 years old. So I've lived and I've grown around reggae music all my life,
Yeah.
And my biggest influence, obviously, was the Wailers. The first album I ever owned, I stole off my bigger brother Robin, actually, was African Herbsman by the Wailers and Lee Perry, and I think that still today is the quintessential reggae album of all time. I also loved the Beatles, of course, and I loved the Jackson 5 and Motown, Marvin Gaye and Al Green and people like that.
Yeah.
So those are my influences.
What makes it so infectious, do you think?
Well, I think it's the sexiest music in the world. It has the sexiest dances to go with it. And it's the rhythm, it's like your perfect reggae beat is like a heartbeat. Yeah. Whatever that is, 60 BPM, something like that. And the reggae as we know it, as it sort of was invented by the Barrett brothers, it was a one drop, which is very similar to a heartbeat, It's perfect dance music, and if you look at all the contemporary music now, it's so influenced by reggae. Reggae's got to be the most influential music in the world, and it's the youngest music form, We had jazz and rock and pop and all these other things, but reggae came up, like I said, it's only been around since 1970, really.
Yeah. I remember going down to my local Woolworths store and buying Food for Thought on a 45.
Wow, yeah.
If memory serves me correctly, it was the double A side.
It was, yeah, Food for Thought and King.
That's right, King.
Yeah, and that was the single that went to number 4 on our first, when we did the first tour with Chrissy Hine. And, that's what started us off. As, we then went on to have 40 top 20 hits.
Yeah.
In the 80s, we were the biggest selling band in England and the most toured band in history, really.
Is it true King was written after Martin Luther King?
Yeah, of course. King, where are your people now? Chained and pacified. Tried in vain to show them how, and for that you died.
Yeah.
A merry little ditty.
Yeah. Both of those songs were off the debut album, Signing Off, but one of the biggest albums was Labour of Love back in 83. How did that album come about?
Originally, we wanted to do that as our first album. But we were persuaded not to, because at the time it was sort of trendy to write your own lyrics, and we were known as the sort of the Dole Q band. But after a couple of albums, we did the album that we originally wanted to start with, which was Labour of Love 1, and that was the question we were most often asked by journalists was why did we get into reggae? How did we get into reggae? And the songs on the Labour of Love series were the songs that we grew up listening to, and the reason why we loved reggae music,
Looking back at the 70s and 80s, they were very special for you. 9 albums and 29 singles in the 80s. Why do you think the 80s are so special?
Well, I think everything works in opposites, It was a sort of decadent decade, but at the same time, there was 1 in 10 unemployment, and there was a lot to shout about. So we were a protest band, really, until we started doing the Labour of Love series, I mean, I made 24 albums with UB40, and only 3 of them were Labour of Love albums, cover albums.
Yeah.
The rest were self-penned, and generally we moaned and shouted about the same sort of thing on every album, which is, war and social injustice,
Yeah. I always ask my guests, what comes first when you write music? Do you get the lyrics first, or do you get the music first?
Well, with UB40, we were all self-taught, So it was a bit like pulling teeth making records with UB40 because we sort of only played what we knew how to play so far, you know. So it was always the music first with UB40. We'd jam, we'd come up with music, then one of us would come up with a lyric. I was the tunesmith, so the lyrics would come to me. I would then fit those lyrics to one of the tracks that we'd jammed, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how we wrote. And that's kind of how I write still, you know. I put the drum and bass down first, and then, you know, I'll fit the poem, I suppose, over the backing track, you know. Then I had to sort out which lyric went with which backing track, you know, and marry them together, basically.
You had a hit with Chrissy Hines with the Sonny and Cher song "I Got You, Babe," and then Dusty Springfield's "Breakfast in Bed," and then I love the Shy Lights' "Homely Girl." Do you have a favourite UB40 track?
Have I got a favourite?
Yeah.
I think my favourite tune and song is "I Won't Close My Eyes," which was on UB44, which wasn't one of our best albums, but I think the lyric and the tune of "I Won't Close My Eyes" was pretty spot on, I think. So yeah, I'd say that's my favourite track.
You won an Ivor Novello Award for International Achievements. What are your memories of receiving such a prestigious award? It must have been a brilliant night.
Yeah, well, we've been nominated for quite a few awards and stuff, and you can be in danger of taking yourself seriously. But I was nominated for an Ivor Novello for a song that I'd put into the charts, which was "Girls Like This" by Chrissy G and Lady D. And we went along to the awards ceremony, and I was beaten by Bob the Builder. So that kind of put me back in my place, you know. Kind of shows, you know, that those awards are really, you know, just the industry patting themselves on the head, you know, more than anything.
Yes. But also another proud moment must have been in 2007 you were nominated at the Grammy Awards for the Best Reggae Album. Again, that must have been a proud moment.
Yeah, very proud. We didn't get it, and I don't think we ever will. That's because there's some people on the board at the Grammys that kind of refuse to see UB40 as a reggae band, you know. Really, because they were under the misapprehension that we were middle class, you know, and that we were a white band, when of course we weren't white, we were multiracial, you know. And I don't mind being called white, because I am, but the other half of the band were quite upset about it because they weren't. Yeah. You know.
We've invited questions from your fans all week. Trish from Dudley asks, are you a blues fan still?
Oh, of course, yes.
And how will they get on this season, do you think, she said?
Well, I'm from Birmingham City, you know, so I'm a Zulu. I'm from Borsley. I don't really follow football, but my allegiance in Birmingham, of course, would be to the blues.
Sarah Ball from Telford has been in touch. Sarah said she's seen you in concert, is a huge fan, has a huge crush on you. She said, would you say hello to us?
Sarah Ball, how you doing? Big love, honey.
There you are. Nina, Yvonne and Dawn from Wallheath would love to hear Red Red Wine. We'll play that very shortly. Dawn asks, Ali, will you marry me?
I can't, I'm afraid. I'm married already. I'm married down already.
Before we continue, let's have a listen to your 1983 smash hit, Red Red Wine, then we'll come back and have another chat. Is that okay?
Cool, yeah.
Red Red Wine and UB40 on the Big Decades. We're joined on 102.5 The Bridge this afternoon by our very special guest, Ali Campbell. Ali, it's late noughties. You leave UB40 and embark on a solo career, performing a sellout concert at the Royal Albert Hall, which brought you some of your best reviews of your career, and then a string of solo albums, including Flying High. How did that album come about?
Flying High? Well, it was just... when I started UB40 all those years ago, it was to promote reggae music, you know, and that's exactly what I did as soon as I left UB40. I mean, it was a bit strange leaving my own band, you know, but I'm carrying on doing what I started UB40 for, which is to promote reggae music, you know. So the Flying High and the Running Free albums, I wanted to include some guests and just kind of bring something different to the table, you know, because I was doing something different, you know. But I would never I would never not do reggae, you know. It was still about promoting reggae music. So Flying High just had some great guests on it, and I did the same thing with Running Free as well. I had good guests on that too. And then I did the Great British Songs, which was actually a bit of a joke, you know. I'd covered a song with the Fun Loving Criminals. I'd done Prince's Purple Rain, and I thought that was a very unlikely reggae cover. But when we did it, it worked so well that I thought maybe I should do some more, you know, unlikely covers. So I did the Great British Songs with, you know, the Beatles and the Kinks and the Hollies, and all in reggae versions, you know.
Yeah. We've had an email in from Gracie, who's listening in Ireland. Fantastic gig in Bray, she said, and also Swindon last night. Absolutely rocked, she said. When's the new album coming out?
Well, it was sort of supposed to be coming out in August. I'm at St John's Wood Rack Studios, which used to belong to Mickey Most. So I'm in there putting the finishing touches to the new album, basically. It was pending to be released in August, but I think it's more likely to be September, I think, now. And funny story, actually. I've done a cover of a Dennis Brown song called Silhouette on this new album. And the lady who runs Rack Studios came running in and went, "Oh, how fabulous you're doing Silhouette." And I said, "I didn't know you like Dennis Brown." And she said, no, that was originally done here by Mickey Most with Herman's Hermits. So what I've done is I've taken it home without knowing it, you know. So I thought that was pretty serendipitous, and I like stuff like that, you know. But it's a great album, and I can't wait for it to get released, and I know people are waiting for it, you know.
Then came another album, this time a collection of iconic British pop and rock hits. 60s and 70s, the album was titled Great British Songs. Yeah,
you know, the Stones, the Kinks, iconic rock songs, you know, doing them in a reggae style with Sly and Robbie in Jamaica. They were very amused by doing Baker Street and stuff, and All Right Now by Free, you know. That was a sort of project that became an album, really, you know. But this new album that I'm working on is 7 originals and 7 covers.
We've also received an email from Lucy, who's listening online in New Zealand. Many strings to your bow, because you're a judge on New Zealand's Got Talent, weren't you?
I was. I did the first new series of New Zealand's Got Talent last year with Rachel Hunter and Jason Kerosene, and I had a fabulous time. I was there for 13 weeks, and for 13 weeks it was the most watched programme in New Zealand, you know, so it was a big success. And I did it because I love New Zealand and I wanted to spend, you know, some time there. It was great working 1 day a week there for 13 weeks. I took my little boys over there, and we did a bit of travelling around and stuff. And, you know, I generally had a great time with my friends out there in New Zealand.
Looking back, is there any difference between Britain's Got Talent and New Zealand's Got Talent? I suppose it's basically the same, is it? The format's still the same?
The format's the same, but I think the talent was different, you know. There was a lot of sort of indigenous talent, and that was something that I was expecting, you know. I wanted to see some Maori acts and some Samoan and Fijian people, you know. I thought that was great, and that was very unique to New Zealand, you know. Yeah, I had a thoroughly good time. It's a shame I can't carry on doing that, really. But you see, while I was out there doing that, my band were all sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. So I had to keep flying out to South America and doing shows.
Covered some air miles there.
It's a long way to South America from New Zealand and back again just for a couple of shows, you know. But otherwise, I'd have had an unemployed band.
Looking back, what would you say is the highlight of your career?
Well, definitely one of the highlights of being in UB40 was when, after having upheld the cultural boycott in South Africa for so long, Mr Mandela was released, and we finally got to play there. And UB40 still hold the attendance record of 80,000 people in Johannesburg, all singing along to one of our songs called Sing Our Own Song, you know. And in Sing Our Own Song, one of the choruses, Amandla Wetu, which means power is ours. It was the ANC chant, and to have 80,000, you know, people singing that back at you was very moving. And remains a highlight of my career.
He's not very well. We wish him all the best, of course.
Yeah, we do.
We always ask our guests to do me a strapline. Will you do me a quick strapline? Just, hi, this is Ali Campbell. You're listening to The Bridge.
Hi, this is Ali Campbell, and you're listening to The Bridge.
Absolutely brilliant. So what next for Ali Campbell then?
Well, I'm on the road again, as usual. I'm promoting reggae all over the world. I'm going to be in Hawaii very soon, and in Africa. The album is coming out, I'd say, in September. And I'll be promoting the album, going around promoting the album.
And you're also at the Rewind Festival in Scotland the end of July, aren't you?
Yeah, I love them. I've done a few rewinds, and they're very big affairs, and I get to meet a few.
Some old friends.
Some old friends, yeah. Last time I was there down south, we did a rewind, and Earth, Wind and Fire were there, and I love those guys. And I once played a show in Monaco, and I was on my own. I didn't have the band with me. It was a wedding, and I asked these guys who were sort of loafing about in the hotel if they'd pretend to be my backing band, and they went, "Yeah, sure, why not? We got nothing to do." We went out to this big boat, and they performed behind me. I had a CD of the music, and they mimed to it. And afterwards, I found out it was Earth, Wind and Fire. And so I had Earth, Wind and Fire as my backing band, which of course made my day. And then I saw them at the Rewind Festival, and we had a good laugh about that.
I was told the story not so long ago. The Jacksons were playing the Midlands, and they were back off to the airport after the show, and they stopped off at McDonald's just outside Wolverhampton, and nobody noticed them.
Is that right? Yeah, well, funnier things happen now.
So then, some silly questions. We always finish with 4 or 5 silly questions. We have a giggle and a laugh.
Okay.
So, in your current band, who's the Joker in your current band at the moment?
Who's the Joker in the Depp band? I think they're all jokers, actually. I've got a band of jokers.
You'll have a good laugh, I bet.
Yeah, well, they're a great bunch, and I thoroughly enjoy touring around with them. And yeah, the whole bunch of them are jokers.
Who has the worst dress sense?
The worst dress sense. Probably me, actually.
It keeps you out of trouble. Who sleeps the most when you're on tour?
I'd say Slowly, the drummer. Yeah.
This one's the most contentious one. Who's the most talented?
Oh, that would be me. That would be me.
It had to be.
Yeah, of course.
And finally, if you weren't a musician, what would you have liked to have been?
I'd like to have been a farmer.
A farmer?
Yeah. Watching things grow in seasons and all that. Yeah,
they've had some difficult times at the moment.
Yeah, I'd like to be have a small holding and grow. I don't know, little crops.
Yeah, it's the pub bit at the end that I like.
Yeah, of course.
Ali Campbell, it's been a privilege talking to you.
Okay, nice one.
Thank you for joining us on the bridge. We wish you every success for the future. Please keep in touch, won't you?
Okay.
Okay, take care.